This is Agronomy Moment. I'm Wendell Cohen. Welcome back, everybody, to Agronomy Moment. We're going to talk about fungicides, and I'm trying to put the fun back in it. It's a boring old topic, but it helps us a lot, and so we'll see how interesting.
Absolutely.
Celena's joining me today.
Hello again.
Yep. So we're going to background the fungicide as far as what kind of little history, very briefly, some return on investment from Beck's PFR. Products to consider: when do we spray, when do we don't? Let's move. Fungicide background, I'm just going to talk real quick. As you can see, pre-1970, clear back to the 1830s, 40s, maybe even 1700s, 1600s maybe at times, not a lot changed.
Yeah.
They were using just some organic type of products that they would find, and they would spray them on a leaf. And then after the 70s, we started to see some changes. After the 60s, 70s, and even the 90s was when the strobies entered. The reason I think I want to point this out is that modern chemistry is actually relatively new. But in the time that it came to the market, not a lot has changed, and they are vulnerable to resistance.
Mhm.
And so using your multiple modes of action on them like you would herbicide, I feel is important. Genetic traits are also important in your battle. Utilizing other strategies is important, not to rely solely on your chemistry. So chemistry is not just the silver bullet for everything.
Yep.
So that's just kind of what I wanted to underscore on the vulnerability
Yep.
of what we have.
Absolutely.
And how to.
That sums it up pretty good.
So what are these actives? Tell me a little bit about SDHIs, triazoles, and strobies, and a little bit of their differences.
Yeah, so most of the time, in comparing fungicides or whenever we have the fungicide conversation, and I don't think now having the conversation now is the same that was happening 3-5 years ago or so, but whenever we talk about the preventative and the curative side of things. But it is important to note that that is one of the key differences with fungicides and what kind of mode you're looking at. If you're comparing a SDHI to a triazole, however you're looking at the situation, there is difference. So preventative is a fungicide that has been applied to the plant before the pathogen develops and protects infection from happening. Whereas a curative doesn't necessarily mean that we can just go wipe that disease off the plant and see that it was never there. It's that the active ingredient will, once it is applied to plant tissues, it can stop the early growth of a pathogen. So just a couple of the differences there. Oops, sorry, hit the microphone. Between some of those. So the SDHI is the respiration inhibitor, triazole, sterile fungi production, and then the strobe is also a respiration inhibitor. So we think about an SDHI is going to help stop the future spread of a disease. We think about with an SDHI also the amount of what are the words? Sorry, words.
Help me know where you're going down.
Plant health benefits.
Yes.
Holy cow! Finally got it. And that the SDHI can bring, and so we think about those plant health benefits, and increasing water use efficiency is going to help with our grain fills, with soybean pod fill and things like that. So
So tell me about strobies.
As far as
like the health benefits,
Yep.
You're talking about SDHIs, but tell me about strobies.
So as far as the preventative and the preventative aspect of that, it's going to be very, very similar, but it's going to help with that photosynthesis and that water use efficiency in that plant. So
as you're facing a hot and dry time, for example, or a strobie can help respiration. I call it respiration, the plants, the stoma to open and close to
Mm-hmm.
for water loss, right? Like it talks about,
Yep.
and
Yep.
improve that. So is side benefits. So
Right.
like talking about a little bit going back, and I'm wondering if SDHIs are this way or if it's more of a strobe. But think about a case where you have held out corn, or I say held out. I'm not talking about catastrophic loss,
Mm-hmm.
but you've got shredding going on out there, and the corn's V4, V5. Um, Sometimes a fungicide can help, but not from a disease perspective. Is there an active that does that better than some of the others? Or
I would say that in that case, you're probably looking at a strobe.
yeah, okay, yep.
But that could
And
differ.
so what it can do is it helps the stress, the immune response in the plant to get it to overcome its stress,
Mm-hmm.
its damage, and push out new leaf shoot growth, right? And be able to overcome it. Don't think you're spraying it to prevent
Disease. Yeah.
fungus. If there is a disease that will come into held out corn, it's going to be more what, bacterial, or
Right.
and that's not covered. Like you're not going to kill that with a
Right.
fungicide.
Yeah.
So
That's it. That's a good point.
okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we understood what you were, more clarity there regarding
Yeah.
the
And
side benefits, of different areas that could
yeah,
affect.
and a fungicide is going to depend on a lot of different factors as far as
Mm-hmm.
spraying, not spraying, whatever. So you think about the yield potential of the crop, your rotation, the susceptibility of a
Sure.
hybrid. I don't if we hit on that later, we'll kind of talk about some differences with our genetics now,
Yes.
compared to what we had years and years ago as far as packages and things like that.
Yes.
The severity, aggressiveness of the pathogen. I mean, there's just so many things. Weather conditions now in 2 weeks. What's it
Yep.
going to be like? So many things to keep in mind.
Yes. Disease management. So to that point, to keep things in mind, let's talk a little bit about those diseases that come, a little bit of their risk, and how we would manage through making those decisions. Because no one wants to. I mean, fungicide's expensive. If you
Yeah.
could avoid it, it'd be nice to avoid it.
Yeah.
So let's just talk. Let's go down through the list. Gray leaf spot.
Yeah. So we think of gray leaf is going to overwinter in residue. So if at all possible, or if it's a practice that you do, burying that residue
Yep.
is potentially going to help a little bit. Now, I understand there's no-till situations, and that's not something that you look at, but maybe in that situation, you look at if you have a problem, a hybrid
Yes.
that has a better score for
Yes.
gray leaf spot.
And I feel like hybrids in recent years have definitely have scaled up in their improvement on resistance.
Yeah, I agree. Just the way genetics are going, it's
Yep.
and that kind of goes to the Physoderma brown spot conversation.
Okay.
That
Yep.
I think probably historically we haven't been as
Focused
concerned about it because
Yep.
it hasn't presented a huge yield loss or risk to us. But I think that the genetic resistance in the hybrids going
Yep.
forward is going to continue with this disease to be a play that we
Yes.
look at.
And then I think most cases it may not still. However, there are those cases where you have that because it is also a soil borne. If I remember you mentioning to me that one time, so it is. If you have it in your field and it is becoming an issue, it can become a yield robber, and so it's something to be paying attention to.
Yep.
It looks similar to other types of fungus, but it is different.
Yep. Well, yeah, just simply anything that's going to reduce your photosynthetic rate in your plant is
Yes.
Not beneficial.
Rarely, probably, but yeah, there has been cases where it's been bad enough and it's caused some stalk rot and stuff, right?
Mhm.
Isn't that correct? And some like the nodes and stuff, there have been times, but typically, like you said, it's a photosynthesis. Talk about southern rust. This one here is a monster if it comes.
Yeah, the thing about southern rust is that it just kind of hits us later.
Yeah.
And it's gonna depend on its spore is gonna have to be carried through a storm, through wind, whatever the case may be. I'd say that one of our most effective ways of preventing southern, or not preventing it, we can't prevent it, but managing it, I should say, is listening to what is going on in around you in local counties and
Yes.
in that matter the state, because that's how that's going to travel.
Yes.
And um,
Y-
a fungicide will definitely help that plant as far as um, sorry distractions,
Yes,
will help that plant as far as its water use efficiency and being healthy and maybe being able to take on that better. But I think sometimes we might see that southern rust come in a little bit later.
yeah.
But I'll put a plug in for that SDHI here, that it's going to give you some longer lasting protection in comparison to um, some other things that will help it. Um, Sorry, I'm getting so distracted right now.
There's law enforcement arriving outside the window, and I don't know what's all going on after
Um,
sirens and everything.
so
But
yeah, the SDHI, a little bit
slight
longer
distraction.
lasting protection. So maybe being able to help with a southern rust situation,
Yes,
so that plant has that SDHI fungicide in it, helping it
yes.
with its.
And I will say too is that if one thing in your own field, far as just scouting, is if you find those places where a sprayer track knocked down quite a bit of corn, or
Mm-hmm.
a spot where maybe the corn didn't come up, areas like that that are sheltered from the straight line winds, but cause the swirling winds to
Yep.
occur in those little environments inside your field. If you see it there, it's going to expand to the rest of your field
Yep.
fast and very aggressive. Rarely is there a negative ROI if you have southern rust.
Right.
I'm just going to put that plug in for fungicides.
Yeah.
If you got southern and you are 2 weeks away from black layer,
Mm-hmm.
my opinion is it's a no brainer.
And pay attention to those disease ratings on your hybrids that you got planted into your field. If maybe you have something that is not as good genetic
Yes.
wise against southern rust, that's a field you probably need to keep a really close eye on.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Water and coverage, things to remember: corn plant height, challenges, deep penetration of water from aircraft. You know, a little more water, the better. The more water you can give, the better. Um, Cooler temperatures if possible. That's not always controllable because you're not in charge of the aircraft. Just wanted to kind of
Yeah,
throw that out
yeah,
there.
I'll talk about it a little
Okay.
bit. The cooler temperatures will play into the time of day conversation we'll have, but um, I believe on corn we've got a 15. Our PFR proven is 15 gallons per acre
Yep.
on corn and 20 on soybeans. But to the point of more water
Yep.
is better. And I get the challenges of getting over that with a
Right.
spray rig, but again, the aircraft point is, if you need fungicide or want to put a fungicide on, put it on.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry about the little distractions that are going on. Law enforcement, sirens, and then people somebody screaming. I don't know. Anyway,
Rolling on.
we're just gonna keep going because we're not our deal.
Yeah. So here's where we talk about our fungicide timing and
Yep.
our diseases when they're moving in corn or soybeans. Even we think about it's early, going to be pretty close to reproductive stages of the crop,
Yes.
in probably a little bit earlier. Um, so it's going to key in on those reproductive stages of the crop, VT in corn and R3 in soybeans.
Yes.
I really like on the soybeans, we have honed in our PFR data that R3, and that's just so crucial because
Yes.
nodes 70% of the soybeans yields come from nodes 6 to 13,
And
and
they are there.
that is R3.
Yep.
And so, making sure
That
that we're
timing
protect.
is
Yep.
super critical in the
Yeah.
soybean. Too late, too early, and you get a negative result and really a bad look at a fungicide.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not the fungicide maybe, but it does not return to your farm.
Yep.
So
Exactly. And then um, just the time of day, we kind of hit on that earlier,
yes.
but cooler is going to be a little bit better, which is usually going to be earlier in the morning compared to mid afternoon when that sun's beating down. Stomates are going to probably be a little bit more open for business, and that's why we can see that
Yep.
benefit from and the coverage on the leaves. The dew is
Sure.
probably going to help our coverage, so that's another benefit of early in the day if we can control it at all.
Yep.
Logistically, probably maybe a little bit easier on the soybeans than it is on the
Yes.
corn. Just something to think about.
Yep. Especially as you think about, instead of going late in the evening, do the early morning.
Mm-hmm.
Don't. Oh no. Do add to Mother Nature, but don't let Mother Nature add to you.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, let's move on. I'm talking about like rain or dew. You can sooner add it on when the dew is on the leaves, but don't let the dew add later.
Mm-hmm.
PFR proven products, real quick. What's the bottom line here?
Yeah, bottom line, we're testing a lot of products in our PFR data, and we added some new ones this year. I think in the top left corner, you can see the new ones that we added: Delaro, Veltima, and Revitec.
I gotta see what's going on.
And what I really think is the most important thing here is the multiple modes of action. So we got strobies and triazoles and SDHIs.
Yep.
I think it's just really important that we go attack with all of those modes, like we talked about earlier, setting ourselves up for success, to not get farther into the resistance conversation, as far as genetics are concerned, and that's really the most important thing. And there's going to be, probably more fungicides to come, but that's one of the main points I want to make here is multiple modes of action is really beneficial.
So, how finding answers simply. Scout, be aware of your fields. What you drive by and see is not always what's inside. And we talked about earlier about nearby counties and news that's coming in. Your local agronomist, your advisor, your seed guy,
Yep.
whoever you put your trust in, that's an advisor at your table, is listening and is hearing those things coming in. And so it's important to be in contact with him.
Yeah.
What do you take away?
Yeah. Get out there, put the boots on, and like Wendell said, if you can see it, that's not something that's going to go away, but maybe it's how can we help that plant for the rest of the season.
Yep, exactly. And want to thank you, everyone, for listening to our podcast today. Celena, for joining me. Appreciate it very much. Thanks to all who made it possible. Thank you for watching. I didn't know that fun and fungicides would be quite this interesting. I hated that we had a few little things there going on.
Distractions, but that's okay.
The police were outside the window and they were taking care of an incident.
Yep.
So thank you for your patience. We'll see you in the next one.
See you next time.
Everyone, thank you for joining us today on Agronomy Moment, a Top Ag Services production. If you want alerts on what we are finding in the field, go to topagservices.com/signups to receive alerts, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's our goal to bring you the most recent and advanced information possible. If you have any questions or feedback, feel free to reach out to us anytime. We also ask you that you give us a like and follow our channel wherever you listen to your podcasts or watch these videos. This ultimately helps us reach more people like you.
Hello?
Hey, this has been Wendell Cohen, your show host. Thank you to all who made this show possible. This show is over. See ya.